Welcome back to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. My guest today on Anything is Possible is Randy Boyd with PetSafe. All right, so you said you learned from your dad, don't quit. I mean, that's what you said, don't quit. I mean, find a way, work your way around it. Watching your father file Chapter 11 and then watching him come back was a real lesson in how you come back. Talk about your own experience. You've got a pretty successful company, started in this company, because you've had other companies, started in 91. I think I read you're in excess of $280 million a year in business, and you've got a lot of great associates that work with you to make that thing happen. But it wasn't always like that.
Yeah, so in the early years, it was a struggle. We usually talk about the great success. When we started off in 1991, our objective was to sell 100 PetSafe radio fences a month. In the first month, we sold 3,000. In the first 6 months, we sold $1 million worth. The next year, we sold 5 million, and 8 million, and then 15, and so on. And so when I usually give the glossy history of the company, it's just one success after the other.
It's just that curve.
But there was quite a few struggles in those early years. I remember probably a year into it, my wife having a discussion with me. I was probably not sure what the situation at that moment was, but I know it was a very stressful, emotional one. And she looked at me and said, well, why don't we just go back to what you did before? But, at some point you cross the Rubicon, and it's impossible to go back. And you have so many investors and associates that are counting on you, and so you only have one choice but to go forward. But I think one of the things that was a turning point for me in the early years was probably 1995. So we had been at this for 4 years. That year we did everything wrong. The 4 years prior to, each year we were growing by 100%. And that particular year, sales flattened, and there's a long story behind what happened. And we went from a company that was barely breaking even to losing $1.5 million. And it seemed like the end of the world. And I remember sitting in a conference room with my CFO, looking over spreadsheets and trying to figure out how we're going to turn this around. And finally we decided, sitting here in this room by ourselves, we're not going to figure it out. So at that time, I think we had 60 associates. We brought them all together and said, guys, here's the situation. If we can't turn this around, we won't be in business a year from now. So we have to figure this out together. So collectively, we all divided up into teams. Everybody took on a certain part of the company to either increase sales or reduce costs. And as a result of empowering all those associates to take charge, we turned it around. The following year, we went from 16 million in sales and losing $1.5 million to 24 million in sales and making $2 million. And we've never looked back. But the thing that I learned in that experience was the great resource that you have in your associates.
Wow.
And so since then, we've had a focus on empowering our associates. And
you know what's interesting about that is, I know you definitely want to pay homage to the people, because it's the people that actually make organizations and businesses work. But having the courage as a CEO of a private company to be that transparent. There are a lot of managers who just would never let people know, here are the real numbers, here's what's really going on, and then take that extra step, which is to say, you know what, when I hired you, I thought you were creative, smart, bright people. Why wouldn't you bring that brilliance to bear to help us solve this problem? Mm-hmm. And how did you come to that?
I think it was just an evolution of experiences, like I mentioned, the one where we empowered our associates. But one of our values, and we're a very value-centered company, one of our values is creating an environment of equality and teamwork. And one of the things that we do, and one of the things that I always say is the corollary to empowerment, is information. You can't empower your associates without giving them full information. And I don't know how many other CEOs, leaders of organizations that I've met that have come to me and said, wow, you've got these amazing, empowered associates. They're willing to step up and make decisions and take initiatives. I wish I could get my people to do that, but they just won't do it. So my acid test question is, so do you share with them financial statements? And they say, well, I can't do that.
That's what I'm talking about.
We're a privately held company. And I think you're setting yourself up for failure if you ask people to act like leaders, but you don't give them the same information as leaders. They're going to be frustrated because they don't have the information to make decisions.
That's incredible.
You're going to be frustrated because they're not making those decisions. So part of our culture is total access to information. Everybody has complete access to all financial statements. Pretty much everything's available to anybody, anytime, with the exception of personnel records.
Why pets? And I noticed your father was in an electric fencing business, and one of your products, because I know you're very diverse, you're in several pet product categories. were you jumping off of the foundation that your father had? Did you already kind of know that business and decided to apply it to the world of pets? And then why pets?
Well, if you don't mind, if I could maybe give a little history,
Sure.
it might make a little more sense. So when I was 23 years old, I'd worked for my dad for about 4 years, and I came to the conclusion that my dad really wasn't that smart, and he was not paying me what he should. And so I started my own company. And you probably already can guess the punchline. Within about 6 months, I realized that Dad was a lot smarter than I gave him credit for, and I was probably getting paid a fair wage, but I was too stubborn to go back. Within 6 months, the first business failed. We will go into that story, but I started a second company, which was very glamorous. It was a distributing company that bought and resold my dad's products along with about a dozen other products. And I had this Dodge Maxi van, no air conditioning, no radio. I go out to little feed and farm stores in Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, make about 10 calls a day. And it was one of those rack jobbers that, the guys that you see, pull up your van, go in, take their inventory, find out what they need, go out to the truck, bring in the stuff, put it on the shelf, put price stickers on it, write up an invoice, average invoice about $100, and collect your check and move on to the next store. I had a couple of my customers started asking for this product called the Invisible Fence.
Right.
And they said, it doesn't matter how much it costs, we'll buy as many as you can get. Well, that sounds pretty interesting. I'll look into it. It was one of those pivotal calls. I call up the Invisible Fence company. I get passed around on the phone for probably 30 minutes, it seemed like. And then finally I get to the assistant to the vice president of sales.
Hold it right there. Hold it right
Okay.
there. Yeah, yeah. Because, see, this is what we call in the TV business a tease. We're going to stop right here, and you're going to hear the rest of the story on Anything is Possible next. See,
Great.
we're going to tease him a little.